Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today as we go through a buyer's guide to AI in support. My name is Brian Yeh. I'm on the go-to-market team here at Assembled. I am based in San Francisco, and I'm currently living in Barbie's dream house, maybe from the 80s, maybe from the 90s, although it seems to have some flavors from many different decades. That's part of what AI is doing nowadays. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on. We are going to be spending the next 45 minutes together talking about what I've observed and how some of our customers here at Assembled have been buying AI, some of the roadblocks that they've been hitting, and hopefully some of this resonates with you as you go through your own journey. Just a bit about what to expect. My take on webinars is that they're kind of like best man or best woman speeches. No one ever complains that they're too long. So if you're looking for more content and we run out of time, always please come and find me. But my goal is to make this really punchy, really effective, so that hopefully you can sort of apply this sooner. Really quickly, so much to Alexandra, my partner in crime here. If you have any questions, she will actually be flagging them out to me. I sadly can't see anybody's hands who are raised. So if you have a chat, mention it to Alexandra and she'll call my attention. I'm going to move on very quickly from this slide because this photo of me is from like 2016. This is like a child ago, a wedding ago. I don't look like this anymore. But regardless, I'm very happy to meet you today. Okay, jumping into it. Why is this so hard? Okay. I work with companies that are modern, that are more traditional, that have started in phones, that have started exclusively in email support. But you sort of see four themes about why it is so tricky to get an AI evaluation done. And we'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that. Actually, we'll let the beans spill right now. I think the biggest problem that you all are going to face if you are thinking or you have been told or have been coached to bring artificial intelligence in your organization, like the biggest boogeyman is actually number one, picking a vendor that doesn't fit what you need. And number two, probably the second most common one I see is like you just never get the AI initiative off the ground. It has, I've been doing work in analytics with companies of all shapes and sizes since 2010. I would say this has been the most breakneck in terms of the amount of pressure that senior level executives are putting all across the organization to say, how are we adopting AI? So the urgency is very, very high, which again leads to one of two pretty disastrous outcomes, one of which is picking a vendor that is not suited for you. And number two, just not being able to get anything off the ground. And then we're looking at H2 and someone's asking you, hey, how come we didn't get anything off the ground? That is, I think, what I'm going to be hopefully trying to offer some advice or some insights to make sure those two things don't happen. But we have to start with like why does it happen this way? What are the things? The first thing is that there's no clear best practices. I would say I've worked with dozens now of procurement specialists, legal teams, support teams, and almost every person is sort of building the plane as they're trying to get it to fly. Every organization has a hot take about what AI and customer support should look like. Probably making the news recently is Klarna. Klarna is the buy now, pay later giant based out of Sweden, I believe Stockholm. I believe 6 months ago, their CEO came out and said, hey, we're getting rid of not only like Salesforce because we can build it with AI because of our big partnership with OpenAI, but we're also going to shrink our support teams down to something that is very negligible because of how great AI has performed. And if you Google Klarna today, I believe their CEO has done, they probably wouldn't call it a 180 turn, but they probably made a very hard left turn and said, hey, actually, humans are still really, really important in support. All of this is to say, I don't think any company, no matter how smart they are, has figured exactly the best practice of how to apply AI in support or even how to quantify, measure, create benchmarks. So some of this is going to have to be about your understanding your own business needs, and charting a new path. Difficult because there's no set pre-path that we've seen anybody take, but very, very exciting. Probably the most exciting part about this is that we get to sort of help the new standard of what great could look like. And that's a very, very awesome position to be in. One super fast vignette, by the way, about AI and what, no clear best practices. Like my other favorite example is if you go to OpenAI's website and you look at their career pages, one of the things they talk about is hiring more people in support. And if anything, if my point is just to say, the people who are the most in depth and most tuned in to what AI can do are still saying, hey, you know what? There's of course some of support that we can do with AI, but humans are always going to be part of it. Meaning, no one's fully cracked it. It's not like 100% done in certain thing that AI is going to replace all of the human support. Number two, AI buying is still new. We're going to talk a lot about this. I think I have a whole slide here that says like pricing and AI. I will tell you this: pricing is something that the vendors like assembled. We have our own AI assist product. It is fantastic. We have a different pricing model than I think most of our quote unquote competitors do, and we are constantly taking a look at it. I think what everybody wants is we want value commensurate to what we pay. However, the forms in which that comes in, I've seen everything from per minute, per chat, per email, per interaction, per API call. It's all out there. That's really, really tricky for you to navigate. I have one specific tip about how we can get that done throughout this 45 minutes. Third is there's no trial and error. This is a really tricky one. Of course, the natural instinct is to try before you buy. I would not buy anything without trying it. But you can take this too far in that, for instance, I work with a customer that has, I think, four different vendors running at the same time trying to trial and error. The problem with that is you're probably not going to get enough eyeballs on each and every solution. And oh, by the way, how you measure the success of each one of these AI tools is really, really varied. If you are doing that right now, I totally get it. And we're going to talk about, I think, ways to help mitigate this. And then finally, as it breaks the traditional procurement mold, this kind of goes back to part number two. But most of the tools that are out there, if you're thinking about AI and support, are not going to be your standard SaaS per seat model. They may have that, but they probably also have some other considerations about usage. And of course, if we all agree that AI is going to be the future of support, at least in some way, some people more so than less, then the more automation you have using AI should also directly impact the number of seats that you need for the seat component of your AI. So it's a really, really, really tricky journey. Okay. And that is why, and I'll say this for the procurement folks as well, it is very tempting to run a big RFP, every single feature. You want to take the different features from every single vendors and line them up against each other. And I think my hot take, I don't think it's that hot of a take, is that that can lead to both of those two disastrous outcomes that we're talking about, picking the wrong vendor, but also not getting anything off the ground. Instead, I'm here to take a little bit more of what I call like a common sense approach to what I think could be helpful in your journey to purchase your AI solution that's right for your business. I have no idea what you guys are saying. Okay, first and foremost, I would say that of the people I work with, somebody, it's been board level. This is a true story. I was in a South American country. I was in Colombia, and there was a very lovely head of consumer experience. He said, "Listen, I have a lot of stuff to do to revolutionize my CX. I need to sort of identify the tickets that are coming in so that I can fix parts of the product. If I can sort of close that top of the funnel, I should be able to, increase more efficiency in my support organization. Maybe I won't need as many people. That's my main focus." I was like, "That's great. That makes a lot of sense." And then he said, "That all being said, my board told me that if I don't bring in AI this quarter, I'm in deep trouble." So like, well, I guess the moral of that funny story is somebody is asking you, if you're in this room, to do AI. And it's like, well, what the heck does that mean? Because that would really lead you down like a Google hole of like, I have no idea which way to start. Um, what I would say is if someone is asking you to bring AI into the organization, it's your responsibility to dig deeper. Why? What are we trying to solve for? Just like any other part of any other initiative that people are asking you to do. Why are we doing this? And once they tell you why, of course, the answer is always going to be because we need more efficiency. Great. Well, tell me how. right? Dive a little bit deeper because that's going to help you thin slice or like index where you start searching. Okay. Um, I tend to find I've tried to boil the entire ocean here, probably unsuccessfully. There's usually like three pillars, where if you really sort of like ask why, one of the pillars on the left here is like, well, we need a better customer experience. This is like my favorite part, or my favorite way to bring AI in, because I think a lot of CX leaders are realizing that with the new technologies out there, you can actually create a better experience that your customers want. Um, the two favorite examples I have are I work with a financial services company. And one of the things that they'll get once they implemented a human-like AI agent on the phone is they will have a certain demographic where they interact with that AI agent, and then they get passed to a human agent, and the customer's response is, "Hey, can I go back to that nice lady in the beginning?" Which is like my favorite thing. It's like I think, of course, AI can be used for a lot of different efficiency reasons, but one of the I think underrated things is that it can actually generate a better customer experience. Well, great. If that's your organization's goal, if that's their real goal, then that is how you should start your search, right? And you could be thinking about different ways to implement a voice agent or maybe chat, for instance, that feels less like pointing to support articles on your website, but one that has more of a conversation. Great. If that's the use case, go after that. Talk to the vendors that you meet with. Hey, how does this improve the customer experience? The other thing that I'll hear all the time is, well, we want AI to superpower our agents. You know, everyone's using ChatGPT already. What if there's a better way to sort of put a super, that's what I call it, putting a super suit around each one of your agents? Great, go for it. You may want to think about an AI co-pilot, for instance, or maybe there's a lot of great knowledge tools out there with really great search that puts it right at your agent's fingertips because you want each agent to increase their efficiency. Wonderful. But that's very different than the first pillar. So it's really, you know, the onus is on for you to ask, right? And then finally, it's just, you know, you're very traditional. We can't hire as many support agents as we need if we're going to double the growth of our business. We cannot double the size of our support team. So then you get this more general, like, great, we just need to be more efficient. Everyone loves that term. Then maybe your search is all about how do we automate as many tickets as possible? How do we find more resolutions across any single channel? Whatever the answer is, you need to have a true understanding of like what is the North Star, because it's possible that you cannot find a vendor that does all three. You know, I would have to plug, of course, I think Assemble can, but like whatever the case is, like you should really sort of figure out what your North Star is and then optimize. Now, I kind of want to talk about some of the obstacles that I notice that people face. Um, and again, this is just one person's opinion. I think I might have to say something like, you know, my opinions maybe don't represent the opinions of, you know, someone or whatever. Like I'm going to drop some sort of spicy tweet here. So this is really what I see from working with my customers. There are some risks, but it is very enticing to buy from an all-in-one contact platform. I totally get it. They probably have an existing MSA. They probably make it very simple to buy. You know, your renewals coming up, and you can get promotional pricing to bring in an AI functionality. My again, Brian Yeh take here is that there and this is like through not just AI and customer service, not even in this vertical. It is not very easy for these companies, especially if they've brought in that technology through acquisition, to really make it a seamless experience. So ultimately, the package that you buy may be better to do from like a contracting perspective, but I would say that the way that software has moved in like the last 10 years would probably point to you might want to go for a best of breed approach rather than an all-in-one. And there's like one pretty simple reason. Once companies sort of really expand their product set, and they do so without sort of dramatically increasing the amount of development time that they put in, you tend to get a lot of solutions that are bolt-ons and they feel like bolt-ons and they just don't get as much of the TLC, the tender loving care that a best of breed approach would. So you might reap the benefits of having an easier procurement, but you know it's tough to say that in a year that all-in-one company is going to be investing in that AI tooling the same way they invest in their core product. And then you might be sort of, you know, robbing from your future self. And that, boy, it might have been better to go for that best of breed approach. That I integrate great with my contact platform, and they're continuing to invest in that core capability. So again, it's a little bit like beware the all-in-one. I totally get it, but that is one thing that I would say. The second thing with AI in support, I think a very, a common way to go about this is I'm looking specifically for a chat bot or a chat experience. Okay, that's one like work stream. Now I want to look for a voice agent bot or an AI agent that works exclusively in voice. Okay, that's another thing. And then I want to look for a solution that, sort of does email specifically. Well, here's my take. I think AI agents should be not like an army of robots. I think that's the wrong mental model. The right mental model, in my opinion, is you have one super, super, super sharp, fantastic agent with like a really, really powerful swivel chair. Meaning, if you bring in AI to do your customer support, you want to be able to show that AI how to handle a specific kind of issue. Um, you know, uh, Contesting a transaction, looking for a refund or an exchange. So you might, whatever AI vendor you choose, probably has some way to think through, like, well, what are the things that we need to do to teach that AI agent to get to the right answer? It doesn't make sense to choose a vendor that makes you do it three different times for one for chat. Like, here's my logic for chat, here's my logic for phone, here's my logic for email. It's just logic, just like you teach a regular human agent, except now you sort of point them at a different channel. Okay. So my take is that we should be looking for AI agents that have one one set of logic that can interact through whatever channel you care about so that you don't have to have a lot of duplication in teaching that agent how to interact. Um, the final thing here is, sometimes I'll meet companies and they're on an AI journey, and there's, maybe they've done a really great job in that slide that I showed earlier of understanding, like, here's why we need to do it. We need to, increase our agents' productivity if that's the use case. And of course, AI is a very hot topic. You may be experiencing this in your organization, but everyone wants to put their finger on the pie, even though you're the point person. It should drive you crazy. It would drive me crazy. But you're going to start to hear um, from the chorus of people that you have to get approvals from: procurement, legal, product, engineering, right? Folks outside of CX. Well, I think, we've already got a vendor that has AI and I think can do this. And that is a very frustrating thing to hear. And the question that you should have back to them is, well, we may have something already, but the business gap still exists. And so it shouldn't stymie you. It should make you go back to that previous slide about what is our North Star here and understand, like, what is the gap that still exists. And then use that to say, hey, well, listen, you may have a tool, Mr. or Mrs. Person in engineering or product or legal or procurement. It may have an AI feature, fine, but that doesn't like check the box. We've done AI. We still have this business gap to go after and attack. And that's, why I'm going out to looking for these specific vendors. So three things that I tend to see quite frequently that I hope you don't get caught up in. Um, Now let's talk about making the case for it. So we know why it's hard. We think we've come up with maybe some ideas to help narrow the herd, maybe some questions to ask your vendors, right? Are you going to hit my North Star? How to overcome some of your internal objectives. The other one that you're going to get is for other folks in the room that have not been explicitly told we need to get AI to the organization, but maybe you are in CX, your friends in CX have explained, or support have explained, hey, AI is really, really important for us. It's really making a difference. But it's now, it's up to you to help make the case to your business about why you need to unlock dollars to make this happen. And I think because you're all smart people and we're all used to one way of thinking, it's like, great, I am going to measure all of the hard metrics that I need to make sure that I can make a hard ROI business case. And you absolutely should do that. I have another slide here that's going to talk about that a little bit. But here's the thing that I'm noticing, and I think you may be noticing as well. AI is also quite an emotional topic. I think whether it goes said or unsaid, there are a lot of functions out there who are going to feel sometimes threatened. What does this do for my job? It doesn't fit culture with what we're doing. Our agents aren't going to like it. Our agents are going to feel threatened. Our agents are going to feel a certain kind of way. My customer may not like it. Okay. It doesn't matter if your ROI case is 100% solid if there's still the emotional part of folks that is not caught up yet. So if you are thinking about buying AI and unlocking dollars in your own organization, my coaching here is definitely know your numbers, definitely have the hard metrics, um, but also make sure that you find internal champions that you can have hallway conversations with, one-off conversations with. Understand, is there a fear factor in your organization? Maybe there's not, but talk about AI in a way that's away from just the hard efficiency metrics. You need both. I tend to find more people lean too heavily on the left side and completely forget the right side. And then, of course, there's folks who just, you haven't done a lot of this before, where, you only have to get shot down for budget a couple times where you realize the right hand side is not enough to get your budget across. So I tend to not find myself telling people, yeah, don't forget about the happy fuzzies, but the happy fuzzies really do matter specifically for this. Okay, so a handy dandy 5-step process. It shouldn't look that different than any other process. Like we talked about, we really have to identify the use case, get super clear on the North Star, make that your rallying call. Great. Include your key stakeholders. Obviously, the folks here are largely in support. You will know that security, finance, and procurement are always being part of this. I would always say, always, 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 it is better to bring them in earlier to the conversations, deal with the pain up front of trying to wrangle cats. Then the alternative, which is you go down the path, you found a vendor that you love the implementation path, you've gone up the chain to your skip even. However, procurement comes in and says, actually, we have rules here, especially for AI. We have a set of approved vendors, or here are the only people that we've already pre-identified. And now you've sort of spent your weeks and your months and your hours of time and your internal selling only to get held at the very end. My only biggest point here is bring them in early, have a human to human conversation if you can. That way, there's no surprises at the very end. The last one I'll say here, and this has been a big learning for me, I did not realize this when we started this journey. Heads of product and product leaders, I find, are largely being tasked with an overall AI strategy for the organizations that I'm working with. Meaning, I'll meet with CX leaders. They love what we have. Maybe we already even work with them for another one of our products like workforce management, which helps you forecast, schedule, understand the headcount impact of bringing in AI, right? So we have a great relationship, only to be told later on that, hey, actually, it was the head of product that had been tasked with the AI strategy, and they've already come up with a list of partners, vendors, and approach a consultancy firm that they're already using. I would say more so than ever, product is being brought into these support conversations. So that is just like another thing that I'm observing. If you're thinking about it, very organized. Okay, uh, here we go. RFP. Why is RFP in quotes? I've already sort of chatted with you about this. The worst RFPs that I see are not, of course, the worst ones I see are the ones that don't lead to assembled as a choice. But actually, the ones that I see that are really not effective are the ones that are just like the Frankenstein of everything in the entire world that AI can possibly do, right? Like, yes, you may want a tool that does your case categorization and has a co-pilot and has messaging. Great, fine. But once that list gets to like the hundreds or even dozens of rows where you just like completely outsourced any and all requirements to everybody because AI can do so much, you really, really run the risk of running into those two things that I chatted about. You find a vendor that is jack of all trades, master of none, and ultimately will make everyone upset. Or number two, you sort of never get off the ground. You're always on the runway and you can't get anything going because the list just keeps expanding, expanding, expanding. And guess what? No vendor picks all of them or selects or checks off every single box, which, by the way, just from the vendor side, that's intentional. Every vendor out there has their own buyer's guide RFP, and they intentionally add in rows that they know that they have that the other guy doesn't. So literally, if you combine all of them, you're going to get like a Venn diagram that has a lot of overlap and a lot of these slivers where no one can ever meet 100% of the requirements. All of this is to say, the spirit of the RFP is right. We have to get done what we care about. But how you do it with AI is going to be even more important. Have your North Star ready, make it your rallying cry, make sure everyone agrees, and say, you know what? If we were to get these three things done, we completely, we automate 50% of our phone calls so they don't have to touch an agent. We have a chat experience which is capable of actually resolving things without just pointing them to an article. And we want to create a great customer experience. Make those your three things. The rest of it, first of all, I would argue if you've already landed those three things are not as important. But secondly, don't make your decision on whether or not other people have it, because the truth is, with vendors, if you pick a good team, like a smart team, look at their founders, figure out how technical they are, make sure they're not just like a thin wrapper on top of ChatGPT, the chances are they will continue to build out these additional features. But it's most important for you to figure out like what are the big three things, make them a checklist, and then go after it. Okay, number four, run a proof of concept. Again, I would say more so than with any other kind of tool that I would ever purchase, running a proof of concept is really important. And if your AI vendor is really putting up a lot of barriers for you to do that, you should really take that as a signal. Okay. Again, this goes back to, how do you run a proof of concept? I would say probably try to narrow the herd as much as you can. I really would not recommend a three-team runoff. I would think two probably makes a lot of sense. And here's a proof of concept that I think is successful versus non-successful. Here's a non-successful proof of concept. I'm going to send 100 of my tickets to vendor A, vendor B, and vendor C, and see which one of these vendors gives me the best answers. Okay, well, again, I sort of get why you would do that, but the truth is that that is pretty like not representative of how the tool will actually perform in your businesses. Okay, once you do that and you just send a random sampling out because you want to be as fair as possible, which again, I get, ultimately what folks are going to do is they're going to run it through their general model, which is probably, if they're best in class, built on top of the best in class models, which everyone is probably paying for and using, and then get something back, or maybe they'll massage a little bit and send it back to you. What kind of signal does that offer you? Not very much, because when you actually work with the right vendor, they're going to spend time learning your business. They're going to spend time learning your SOPs. And that is going to have the most dramatic impact on the quality of answers that come out of it. So I would say definitely try before you buy, but do so in a world where it actually looks like what it's going to be in production. Sort of sending out 100 tickets and seeing who comes back is just going to add more confusion. It's going to waste a lot of time. It's frankly just not going to give you a great sense of like what you're going to get when you actually buy this thing. I guess the example would be like, if you wanted to test drive cars, but you didn't take it on the freeway, you only kept it like in a showroom on like some sort of like treadmill. It's just not realistic. It's just going to give you a weird little signal. Okay, and then plan for implementation. I like to say that planning for implementation is the best way to get people excited about this initiative. Okay, people don't get excited about every step that you do when you buy AI. I took a meeting, I took a demo, I took this. Keep your team's eyes on the prize. And the eyes on the prize are, we are going to get an outcome. Here's how we get to that outcome. I need Alexandra's team. I need Bree's team. I need a representative from Lindsay's team. Get them excited about what they are going to be doing with this tool that you bought. That is going to pull along your process and remove the barriers, even more so than all the first four steps. Okay. Now here's the part where I get to slam my competitors. I kid. Here, I don't think any of this is really revolutionary. This is actually something that our wonderful, super smart marketing team put together about all the things that you don't want in an AI. Of course, it's all true. It's all real. I would say none of this is groundbreaking. I guess my hot take here is really, if you are in support, at the end of the day, your real main objective function is your tool gets the right answers more of the time than any other tool. That's the one you should pick within budget. That's like, kind of the North Star. I would say those are like the really, really big ones. The high maintenance one is also important. The thing I like to joke about is like chatbots are a great example. If you had a million analysts, with a million hours each, you could create the perfect human-like chatbot because you just like fill out every single node. So there's like, of course, some truth to not being high maintenance, but really what I would say is if you are looking for an AI vendor, find the one that's going to be able to, in a true to life scenario, get you the right answers in front of your agents. That's going to be like the biggest thing. Sorry to my marketing team. I love you. Okay. Pricing. Grabbed this randomly from the internet. Okay. This is not this is I don't even know what vendor this is from. This is from you. It's not meant to pick on anybody. In fact, I think this is a totally fine model. My point is this: if you take a look, um, it's really interesting. The way that they'll charge, they've decided to go with a seats model, words in chat model, and workflow credits or bonus credits. First, let me say this. This could be a completely reasonable, great model. I have no idea. I'm sure this is a very great software vendor. What I would say is like, I have no idea how many words I have in chat, right? I don't even know what a bonus credit is. My point is this: as you go on this journey, okay, if you've got a great workforce management provider like Assemble does, you can actually do a lot of pre-work and get yourself ahead of all of these vendors who are going to throw many different pricing models at you. I'll give you an example. My company, we do not charge per minute when it comes to AI agents interacting on a phone. We actually charge per call and per kind of call. Okay, but a lot of other vendors will say, we do charge per minute because that's, they have their own reasons, which is great. It would be better for you to collect your data within your tools about, well, how many calls I have, how do I break them out, and how many minutes are actually people spending on the phone, so that you can actually try to get to as close to an apples to apples comparison about your usage for the next year. Again, this one called out to me because I don't even know if there's a way to count like how many words there are per chat session. So that, maybe a one-off. I wouldn't expect you all to be able to to pull that out of a hat. But it just goes to show the closer you know your numbers, the less time you're going to spend in like the evaluation vortex when it comes to pricing. Because some folks will say, hey, you know what? We don't need this to blow up to $2 million worth of spend. You don't want to be caught off guard. You want to sort of have as much visibility as possible, and that starts not by understanding every single vendor's model. That starts with you understanding your own support team and how much volume you actually have. Okay. Um, Keeping honest, I think I'm nearly at time. I want to make sure we hit Q&A. I have one quick plug, by the way. You know what? We'll leave the plug till the end. But maybe right now we'll kick off Q&A. Alexander, please, my partner in crime, help me out here with some of the questions, and we'll see if I can help answer them live. Okay, the first one seems to be, how do you recommend measuring the ROI of AI in support, especially when there is limited historical data? Great question. I would say there's two thoughts that I'd have. First and foremost is there are a lot of vendors who will allow you to run a trial. And what I mean by run a trial is you could either start to set up some automations and see how effective the AI is in coming up with those automations correctly. Meaning, if we have a certain kind of ticket, we can actually. Am I on mute, Alexandra? Have I lost folks? Is anyone? Okay, great. I'm not on mute. Thank you. Okay, so what was I saying? Trials. Okay, first and foremost, trials are important. You can do some sort of pre-post in terms of what was happening before, what was happening after. If it was for agent co-pilots, you can measure things like productivity. How many more tickets are my agents able to close pre and post? And oh, by the way, did my CSAT or was my CSAT impacted? The second thing is going back to knowing your numbers. Okay, the first thing that I would recommend is come up with your cost per case. Feel free to get as granular as you want. Your cost per case for phone may be different than the cost per case for email. Once you run these trials, you can actually figure out, well, how many tickets is my machine or my AI taking care of? It then becomes pretty simple for you to say, like, okay, I can justify an additional cost of $200,000 because, it looks like the amount of volume that would actually be hitting my human agents is down by 10%. I know what my cost per case is. Therefore, you sort of get a very quick and dirty ROI. Okay. Um, any other questions, Alexander? If you could continue to help me out here, that would be great. Or should I stop screen sharing and just go to chat here? Let me see. Does this work? Okay. Here we go. Pricing has been difficult when comparing vendors. It seems like every vendor wants to charge for different things: seats, deployed AI usage on tickets, deflection solves, et cetera, et cetera. What seems to be the most common? What is the industry trending toward? From what I've seen, the industry is trending toward continuing to evolve. It is different. We've seen all sorts. I mean, I think this is kind of like my favorite example of words per chat. The seats one will probably continue to remain because there will always be some sort of like agent-facing AI tool. The thing that I would keep in mind though is that uh, there needs to be a growth component to how you think about AI. And this is where I would also recommend, I don't think I said this up front, I personally would probably not sign a lot of multi-year deals when it comes uh, to AI because number one, the technology is changing very quickly, but number two, if sometimes we think about what the biggest impact of bringing AI support could be, it could be reducing the amount of headcount that you have. If you have a really effective tool that is really good at identifying tickets, automating them away, your seat count is just going to look pretty different. I know I'm not answering your question directly, but this sort of goes back to number one, seats are going to be a really interesting one to keep an eye on going forward. Number two, the trial period should give you really good signals, like, well, what you actually would be paying. So, for instance, deployed AI usage on tickets, something that's pretty common that I see as well. If we do a trial, we actually give you a little bit of volume. We can actually get a good sense of how much volume you're actually going to deflect using AI, which then should give you a good projection going forward. Deflection and solves is really interesting because sometimes what we're seeing with AI vendors is there is maybe like a mixing of usage of deflections versus solves versus resolutions. This one really comes down to probably every vendor feeling like they are trying to align their costs with the value that you're delivering. So this goes back to like, what do you actually care about? Um, so, for instance, resolutions could be different than deflections because deflections might count as, hey, I've served a knowledge article to my customer. It has been deflected. A resolution may be, hey, you know what? I've gone back and forth with a customer, and now there's no additional ticket. One of those is a lot harder to measure, the latter, but it's probably a lot more effective for your organization. So, some of this comes down to like an alignment of how you think about the success of AI in your organization. But the truth is, again, it's probably going to be quite varied for quite some time, and that's going to add to the frustration about picking a vendor on price. Okay, let's see. Can you share an example of a company that successfully implemented AI for support and what made it work? Okay, this is like my favorite story, actually. There's a company that has a lot of billboards out in San Francisco. They're a very fun brand, but they're based in Australia, and their support team is actually out in the Philippines. So the way that it worked for us is they specifically wanted to use our AI agent to successfully automate a very, very large amount of their tickets, but they also had a laser focus on how great the customer experience could be. So what we did, and we have this tool, it's called Agent Copilot. What it does is we resolve tickets, but instead of automatically sending them, we have a really amazing interface that sits within your contact platform that sits alongside your agents. And so what we did is we built out a couple of what we call workflows that help to resolve a specific swath of cases. And then we go and instead of automatically sending them back to actual customers, we have it sit and populate alongside this copilot. And what this customer did, which I thought was so smart, and I think is actually best practice, is they had a set of their super agents. These are folks that just know the business inside and out. They just do a great job. Their CSAT scores are great. Their QA scores are great. And then we had the AI sit alongside them. We said, hey, listen, this can be like your super suit. We're going to automatically populate answers to give you a giant head start. And so what happened was they knew they were part of this test, of course. They would go in and, for a lot of the things, they go, this is great. All I have to do is hit a button and actually take this AI generated answer and stick it into my contact platform, my ticketing platform, and fire it off. And then it turns out that for another swap of tickets, they're going, hey, this isn't quite right. It feels right, but I know this answer is wrong. And of course, with our tool, you have the ability to sort of thumbs up, thumbs down, provide feedback for these kinds of questions. And we collect data on the back end and say, hey, you know what? We're not doing as good of a job with this kind of set of tickets. And what that allowed us to do is work with a team and say, hey, where did we get the logic wrong? Or not logic wrong, but actually in our case, it ended up being, hey, we actually didn't fully finish mapping out our knowledge the right way. So we were pulling in knowledge answers from one part of the business and applying them to questions from another side of the business, which is why you sort of get this like uncanny valley of things that sound right because it followed the style, but it's just the wrong answer. And so only through having these really great agents sort of help the team understand, like, oh, these didn't quite sniff right. That allowed us to go fix it, and that was sort of the spin up that they had. We said, hey, you know what? The path to great and a lot of automations still runs through your best support agents, which I just thought was like a really, really fantastic way to do it. It's actually what I recommend to my customers now, which is don't run it in a vacuum. Like you've already got the right answer in your organization. It's your best agents. Now, maybe 80-20, maybe 20% of them. But you want those people to be the ones sort of gating and helping your automations get to as high quality as possible. It's really my favorite way to sort of make sure that you have humans and AI in the loop. Okay, I'm gonna wrap here. Thank you so much. One plug that I'm supposed to have, which is my colleague Jack, who I love, who sits right next to me. He is running a session on scheduling within another part of Assembled's tool called Workforce Management. He's also going to demonstrate a lot of what we're doing in terms of automations and a lot of the work that's coming along there. So it's, again, we're always talking about it, but superhuman support means you have human agents and AI agents working together. This is now my personal plug. You can't have one without the other. Thank you so much for taking the time. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. My name is Brian Yeh from Assembled. Look forward to seeing you soon and good luck in your AI buying journeys.